often I find real estate and kind of wills and estates go hand in hand. Often when people are sitting across the table from me, they go, oh yeah, I guess I need a will or that thing, but here's the problem is a lot of people will think about it, but they'll never get around to it.
And it's relevant to every single person out there. Even if you don't own a home, you need a will, right?
We're all going to die.
So
Newsflash. Sorry to break, sorry to ruin your day. Well, we got to
be Debbie Downer.
We got to lighten it up.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another edition of Real-tor Talk. I'm Murray. This is Jesse. We made it.
Episode 14.
Is that how many episodes it is? Holy smokes.
What do you get someone for episode 14?
I don't know.
Silver or lace or?
I don't think it's like an anniversary.
Oh.
Maybe when we're doing this for like 5 years and people are watching us, then we can.
All right. Well, it's a mile.
They'll send us a gift.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Okay, so on today's show, we've got Sara Castellano joining us. We're going to be talking about some topics that maybe not everyone wants to talk about because they want to avoid the end result, which is if something happened to someone unexpectedly, you want to make sure you're protected when it comes to real estate or in general, all your assets that you have in your life to make sure your loved ones are protected. So that's kind of where we're going to go down. Just going to talk of power of attorney and a couple other things like that because we think these are important topics and people do neglect them all the time. So we want to make sure that they're not getting neglected. And I get it. It's a tough topic to have, but I don't want to see anyone get caught. And I did have a client from my past rental company that did get into a situation where she moved in with her longtime boyfriend. They did a bunch of rentals and they didn't take care of any of the paperwork. And unfortunately, he suddenly had a heart attack and passed away. Very sad situation. She is now without a house. She has to go find her own home and she might not even get her money back on the rentals. They're dealing with that with lawyers. But anyways, whatever the case is, please protect yourself. That's what this episode is going to be about. But absolutely. Jesse's got our local spotlight, so let's cover that. And then we'll bring Sara in.
The best part of this local spotlight is Murray has no idea what is in the little black box. Okay.
Box. Doesn't even say where it's from.
No, come on now. All right, dig in. You can open it up while I talk here, Murray, because I know he's a big meat lover.
Oh, it's a sandwich.
So listen, we
Crave.
are big fans of Crave in Transcona. They do catering. You can go in there. You can get a lot of meals. This is the
look at that meat.
Philly cheesesteak.
Philly cheese.
Philly cheesesteak. So they do catering, food that's already prepared, like we did here, or you can take meals home. So it's fantastic. People's lives are busy. Murray's got a busy life. I got a busy life. Realtors have a busy life, and you probably do as well. So Crave is fantastic if you need to pick up something on the go. So check them out. They're on Plessis, so Park City Commons there, and fantastic. Check them out on social. We'll have all the descriptions when it comes to what they deliver, websites and all their social media handles in the description below. So
it's a great place. This is a great sandwich.
Give it.
I'm sorry. I'm going to keep eating.
No, give it. What do you say? Like what? Well, no, you can't say anything. All right. So Murray's going to enjoy that. So check it out. And you know what? There's so many fantastic places. You know what I'm going to do as well? I'm going to take some other great places here in the city as well. Lives get busy, and it's nice just to not have to worry about that meal that's coming on. So
that's a great sandwich. Oh yeah.
Okay, good stuff. All right.
That's awesome. Sorry, people.
You don't have to apologize at all. Okay, we're going to dive into the episode here. We're going to bring Sara in because there's a lot of important things that Murray touched on that we're going to dive really deep into, because when you come to a lawyer or a real estate agent, we all want to make everything run smoothly, whether it is that power of attorney, and Sara is going to dive into those right now. Sara, how are you?
I'm good. How are you guys doing? Thanks for having me.
Always better.
Thanks for coming back.
This is the first two-time. Is this our two-time?
Yeah, this is our first two-time.
What an honor.
You know, a Saturday Night Live, there's the 5-host club, right? So if you host Saturday Night Live 5 times, you get inducted into a special club.
Are we comparing ourselves to Saturday Night Live?
We're almost
okay, good.
All right.
I love that. Well, just so you know, I fully expect, an award or a plaque at some point, when I'm the 5th or 8th returning. So
we'll work on
just
that.
So you know.
Would you accept a macaroni necklace? Because that's as far as my craft abilities go.
You know what? I would.
All right, I got some skills with Canva. We'll make you something.
There we go. I love that. That sounds great. Well, always great to be here again. It's such a pleasure and such an honor. I love working with you guys, and thanks for having me back. You didn't scare me away the first time, so let's do this again.
That's good. Whenever we're in the good books with lawyers,
Yeah.
that's
the
always a
best
good
part.
thing.
That's the best.
You know what,
So-
Sarah? Yeah, sorry, Murray.
No, go ahead.
Take it off, please.
No.
There's so many great
just-
topics.
Yeah, no, so we got some questions we want to ask you, which are all probably topics people don't love to discuss.
Yes.
And as I said before you came on, I dealt with this with a client from my rental company where she moved in with her longtime boyfriend and he died in under 6 months from when they moved in, did a bunch of renos and all this stuff to the house, and now she has no rights to the house because she wasn't there long enough. So we want to kind of cover that so people can protect themselves. So that's where we're looking to you. So, one of our first one is, what could you do today to make sure you're prepared if someone passes away unexpectedly?
Absolutely. And, I have to agree with you. I think a lot of people, it's the elephant in the room. Not a lot of people want to think about this, want to plan for it. It's interesting to often I find real estate and kind of wills and estates go hand in hand. Often when people are sitting across the table from me, they go, oh yeah, I guess I need a will or that thing, but here's the problem is a lot of people will think about it, but they'll never get around to it. Or even what we see on the other side of, my firm practices wills and estates as well. And what we were seeing is, when the acting lawyer is sending out wills and estates, kind of getting that process going. Sometimes we won't hear back from clients for several months. It's just not a main priority. I understand it. I get it. It's something that people don't really want to discuss and whatnot, but it is so critical because it absolutely, in the example you gave there, Murray, it can be absolutely detrimental and devastating to a family and very onerous on a family, especially while they're grieving and all of that. So super important. My number one recommendation would be, of course, to have a will drafted. Have a will drafted, and I'm not talking about the one you go online and you print off. And you know what, wills are quite affordable. And often what we find is that generating some of those conversations with our clients, we find that generally we're getting them to think about things that they haven't even thought about. So really great to always have a will in place, making sure that you're updating it, especially after significant family changes, whether you've remarried, divorced, new blended family, that sort of thing. But definitely have a will in place and make sure you are talking about your wishes that you want with the property, especially if you have a partner, that sort of thing.
I think in touching on to Murray's example, as well as many examples that you probably run into more than us, but also with what you were saying earlier, a lot of people don't realize things until they happen. And that is not a fault onto anyone. People are not experts in absolutely everything. And it's not until that you're in that situation that Murray's clients were in, or that you hear that's when people go, oh, I didn't think about that. Or who has to take something simple like that we didn't even realize. Is that something that when you're sitting down with someone going over those things like Murray's clients, that something so simple can go a long way, right? And can confuse things and create a lot of problems.
For sure. And so I try to facilitate, as uncomfortable as they might be, I try to make light of it. I think I'm relatively funny, so I tend to grab crack a joke or two to lighten the mood. But, those are important conversations to have. And so, even in situations where, let's say, a dad is co-signing for a buyer, I do have that conversation of what is your long-term plan? Is it to remove, as much as we love dad, do we want to remove his name? And what happens in the event that dad passes away? How we strategically register our clients' names on title can also have an effect on that. So, that's a whole nother thing and maybe a whole nother topic on its own. But with that being said, those are important things to think about is your long-term planning, as well as, like you said, we do this every day. People don't. So I feel like that's part of that education piece. And I know both of you are very thorough in your jobs, and I try to be an extension of those services as well and be as thorough as I can to kind of provoke those conversations.
Just before you go on to the next question there, sorry, just because you were touching on if somebody is on a title and they pass away. So a lot of times that we get asked about is, I'll just give an example. Hi, my father is going downsizing into a condo. Unfortunately, our mother passed away the year before. She's still on title. Does dad, can he still sell the house if our deceased mom is unfortunately still on that title? Is that going to have complications?
Absolutely. So It's interesting because basically when you between married spouses, so in that example that you gave, between married spouses, if let's say the husband or the wife was to pass away, one or the other, basically the estate goes directly to the surviving spouse unless they have other wishes. So in that example you gave me, we don't have to do something called probate, which we'll get to in a moment here. But basically in that circumstance, the only thing that individual, that dad, would need in order to sell the property on behalf of him and his wife, who's now passed, is a death certificate. Now, this is something that always trips up clients. They come in and they're like, I got the death certificate. I'm like, fantastic, let me see it. And it's the funeral home death certificate.
You need the
It's
federal or
not the one from Stats Canada. And so a few times, that's kind of put us in a bit of a scramble. What people don't realize is that funeral home, yes, it's important, and sometimes that'll allow you to do various things. But what we need at Land Title's office is the actual Stats Canada death certificate. So I know right now, timeline, they're doing pretty good. It's about a week to 3 weeks, but there was some points in time where it was taking 2 to 3 to sometimes up to 4 months. So in instances like that, you can rush it. I've had to write a letter to them explaining the situation, that sort of thing. But definitely something that people don't realize up front that they need.
Yeah, I think like when my mom passed, my dad got it within, I think we had it within a week and a half, something like that,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
But most of the places that we had to deal with for a lot of stuff, except for the funeral home one, there was a few when it came to banking and stuff that wanted the actual.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But you brought up probate there, so why don't we just jump into probate?
I've read it.
Yeah, let's
Just
do
tell us
that.
a little bit about what probate is and why it's there.
Yeah, absolutely. So often I think, people, unless you've been through it, and unfortunately, until it comes your time where you and your family are unfortunately in that circumstance, probate is where you're basically taking your will and it has to go before the court systems or basically processed through the courts. Now, you can do this as a self-rep, meaning that you're doing it without the help of a lawyer, or you can do it using a wills and estates lawyer. So again, most people do tend to lean towards obtaining a wills and estates lawyer just because it can be quite onerous. There's a lot of different questions that come up, tax implications, that sort of thing. So having a professional to kind of help navigate that is always really helpful. But with that being said, so in order to, for example, let's say an individual passes and he has a will, and his house now, client approaches both you, Murray, and Jesse that they want to sell their property. So our first question is going to be, number one, is there any other partner, common law partner, married spouse? If that's not applicable, then what would happen in that case is that the will needs to be probated before they can sell the property. So basically, it allows and ensures that the executors of the will, it gives them the signing authority to sell the property on behalf of the estate. So that's often something that we see that people are not well informed of. Is they go, so my grandfather passed, I'm ready to sell the property. That's great, but probate can actually take a couple weeks to a couple months. At one time, it was taking up to 4 months. It kind of depends when it depends as well. If all goes well, sometimes it'll get rejected. You have to resubmit it, and that could be some delays. So there are some different things that we can do to navigate, but the best thing to do is get that will probated as soon as possible before you even sell your property so that you have the binding and the legal authority to sign off as the executor of the estate.
And for the people watching out there, and that's a great, the steps that you have to take that Sarah just mentioned. For people out there, I know I've run into a couple examples. We as realtors can sell your house, okay? And if we're waiting for probate to go through, I've done this a couple times where the house is on the market, okay? We can still accept offers, but that possession cannot go through until probate is granted, right? So an example was I had a house that we listed in November. We sold the house in November, but probate was still going through the courts. So we had to make sure that we explained to the buyer's agent and the buyers that possession could not be until probate was granted. So we extended the possession all the way to March 1st. They had the abilities to wait that long. And if probate came in earlier, we just moved up the possession date, which is totally fine. So if that is ever the case, And I know because going into the spring market, there are going to be situations that people want to get that house on the market. We can still do that. It's just keep in mind that possession cannot be until, correct?
Exactly. And then in that example that you gave, we're just writing a condition subject to probate so that they know that that's fluid. The other situation as well as, if I know it's quite onerous sometimes for a family to maintain a property and hold on to it while they're waiting for the probate, bills, all of that, checking in on the home. So another alternative is something called an occupancy agreement, where basically the buyers act as renters from the estate until we can make that legal transfer. So that's another option as well that I've seen and that I've done.
That is fantastic that you just said that, right? Because I know you're dealing with so much other stress of, moving forward after the person has passed away, that you don't want to have to worry about that stuff. Or you run into multiple family members that live, in different parts of the province, the country, and we all don't want to go down that road of, right? Sometimes it can get a little stressful if there's multiple people involved, right? And you just want to move forward, right?
Absolutely.
It's how you're recommending all these things, Sarah. I had a situation, wasn't that 2 summers ago, where brother passed and his brother became the executor. And probate was like 5 months. It was ridiculous. But the lawyer was like, you are not selling this house until we have probate. Like, she was so adamant that we couldn't do anything with this. He's like, I don't want to carry this property. And it was
it is onerous. It is, and that's why I think it's so important, just as you go to the dentist for, you go see a dentist for your teeth cleanings, you use a real estate agent when you're purchasing, you're selling. And you use a lawyer and strictly, I would say, a real estate lawyer. So in that circumstance, I'm comfortable. I do this. I live and breathe real estate all day long. So, I know the little nuances and stuff that we can offer. And so, and I'm quite comfortable with them. Right. So I think that's the benefit of just like using a real estate professional. Sometimes I see as well, families trying to just, oh, we'll do it privately. And especially in circumstances like this, it is an extraordinary circumstance where absolutely you should be using a real estate professional, because you need that professional to help navigate the emotions, the difficult personalities, and everything that's involved. And it is no easy task. So I definitely think it's a situation where it's absolutely necessary to use a professional.
Okay. So one of the other things you brought up is executor of an estate, and there's also a power of attorney. Explain what those two things are to us, because a lot of people don't know. And I, funny enough, just ran into a situation a couple weeks ago when I reached out to you asking you about it for a client of mine that's going to be selling their cabin, but the mom's got minor dementia, so we got to make sure it's power of attorney. So they're dealing with all that right now. But explain what the two differences are between those, because I think a lot of people think if they're an executor of the estate, they have control over it and it's good to go, which is not the case. So can you explain it to us?
Absolutely. A lot of the time I'll have clients come in and go, do you have POA, or which is power of attorney, which I'll refer to it going forward. So when I say, do you have POA? And they're like, yes, I do. They'll send it over and it's the will. It's not the POA. So the other thing as well is, I want to stress this as much as possible, is you get what you pay for. And unfortunately, these free resources online and that sort of thing, they're not covering all of the scenarios, and it's not being super thorough. The other thing as well is, I think, will and POA is not something you want to cheap out on. So I know, everybody's very money conscious. I don't blame them, that sort of thing. I don't think you should pay an extraordinary amount, but I think you should pay a fair amount. And, I've seen numerous examples of you get what you pay for. Because POA is basically something that's in place that designates an individual, or sometimes two individuals, to act on your behalf, should you become incompetent. So, dementia, that sort of thing. Or if, let's say, a variety of reasons. So that's when you can use the POA. The POA, you can no longer use that once that person's deceased. Once that person passes, the POA is put aside. Now you have to move on to the will, and you can only really use the will in its fullest effect once it's been probated through the court. So the other thing is POAs. I've seen a lot of bad ones. I've seen POAs that do not allow that designated individual to dispense with the property. So what that means is that they don't have the authority to purchase and sell property on behalf of that individual. So it's a simple clause that again sometimes gets missed. And then you would have to go before the court, apply for committeeship, which is an alternative, basically getting somebody, the court to basically understand that, you know, this person has dementia, they can't make decisions. I need to be that individual, that sort of thing. So it gets messy and it could end up costing you a lot more money along down the road. So even if it's an extra $2, $3, $4, $500, if it means that your family is going to be well equipped to serve you and your well wishes and honor your wishes and, you know, everything that you've basically worked for your entire life, why that, to me, that's money well spent.
Yeah, no, I think that goes for a lot of things in life, that there are certain things that you are supposed to, again, not penny pinch.
Well, you know,
Yes.
enough, I'm power of attorney for my dad, and I've actually never thoroughly read that document, so I'm gonna go read it now and make sure that
Yeah, send it over. I'll
everything's
be happy
covered,
to.
right? Like, I just told my dad, I'm like, make sure there's some power of attorney. If something happens to you, someone's got to be able to act on your behalf, right? And so that's me.
And then,
But I mean,
and another thing as well is too, you know, sometimes it's important too to have an alternative, because I've ended up in situations where there's a POA, the person that was named POA, you know, is now deceased. Well, who does that go to? So an alternative. The other thing too is that's interesting that a lot of people don't know is, for example, if I named POA of my husband, and my husband becomes incompetent, and basically doesn't have the capacity to make those decisions. So, you know, dementia is an example or that sort of thing. Then I actually can't use the POA to sign off on his rights in the property because I'm his spouse. It would actually have to be the alternate in that circumstance. So see, there's all these little nuances that, again, a lot of people don't think of. And often I see people at the end of these things, at the end of their journey. Real estate's usually the last thing. And a lot of the time they're coming to me defeated, exhausted, and a little bit bitter sometimes of the deceased, of just the lack of planning or how onerous it's become on that person, right? Because if they don't do proper planning, your family is going to suffer because of it.
I think that's a good overall thought. Read the documents in full.
oh, for sure. And
Sarah, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, and don't do the ones that are online that you buy for
Yeah,
$100.
yes,
No,
yes.
Get it done because it's important to protect your loved ones. Sorry, I cut you off.
no, I was just gonna say, how many times do we update our phones and we just scroll through that agreement
Yeah.
again? Like, I agree.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that's why you got to sit down with a professional, right? I always say that, like, sit down and all of that. I know my office will be offering wills and estate services beginning in the spring, I think end of March or beginning of April. And you know, that was something that was important that I wanted to bring on. So I'm bringing on another lawyer and with respect to that, just because we it's so important, and a lot of the time those things go hand in hand. And so I want to be able to just, you know, hey, you're thinking about this, let's walk you over to the other office, let's have those conversations. And unfortunately, what I see a lot in the profession is a lot of people just rate shopping. You know, they want the will for $150 or $200, but our life has become so complex, and it doesn't have to be crazy expensive. We're not talking about thousands of dollars. It's quite inexpensive. The only thing is that, you know, you have to sit down, you have to have those important conversations. And unfortunately, you're not doing that if you're just taking one that's online.
Talking about, so I got a question that's kind of on my own there. So I did my will about 18 years ago when I had my
Oh,
first
Jesse.
or now I'm in trouble. So my question is, I think it's in Brandon, locked up somewhere. When should you kind of review and update things?
Anytime you have a major life change. So you
God,
have,
Sarah,
You're
you
gonna
know
see
my
him every
life.
week.
Every day I have major. No, I'm just kidding.
is this where I tell you
Yeah,
that
wind down.
you've
Every
since
time a
had,
sports team plays, you're gonna have to redo his will because you're gonna like, like
Sarah, every
come on.
NFL Sunday, you know how bad the Pittsburgh Steelers season was? Yeah, his
well,
heart is
you
getting
know,
weaker the older I get, Sarah.
But you should keep them recent and
So every
yeah.
like 1 to 2 years?
I wouldn't say it doesn't have to be that often. I'd say like, the reality is, Jesse, you've had boatloads of children before that since that will and different types of assets and all of
Yes.
that.
Where is going?
Yes. Major things. I'm balding in the back. Like there's a lot of major things going on here. Come on. No, I understand though. So but
The
important,
assets.
right? It was funny. I brought that up to my wife because unfortunately a couple months ago my stepfather passed away, and that was
Yes.
the first time that I read a will, and I said to her, "This is the first time I'm reading a will since ours." Wow, that was 18 years ago. Maybe we should do something with ours.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And it's the unfortunate reality too is often what we'll see is sometimes, people are making wills at their deathbed, just for, and then it becomes emergent and they'll pay any money or any amount in the world to make sure that their wishes are honored the way that they want. So, I had some stints in practicing law in when I used to do wills and estates work. I don't do that any longer, just focusing on real estate. But that is kind of the reality is people, it's put off, and then it's kind of people are waiting until it's too late, so to speak.
Well, I guess now that I just said that, I should expect a lot of people that are
Yes.
watching this just to start being nice to me, because now that I'm updating my will, people are going to be like, "Oh, that Jesse, eh?
Yeah, there you
Being a little
go.
bit nicer to him. Maybe he'll drop my name in there." Well, I bought lunch, so I don't know if Murray's going to be at it.
Yeah, I'm gonna put you. I'll reimburse you for the $5.
Don't forget your favorite lawyer, and you will
Of course,
definitely
of course.
be on my list.
You're very busy, but I want to quickly say, just quickly ask you one quick question. It might be a whole expanded, course in that Homestead Act. We see that on offer to purchases. A lot of people don't, but people out there that are selling homes, that their husband may be on title, whether it's common law status or they are married, they do have rights when it comes to selling that house.
Absolutely, absolutely. So if let's say, for example, my husband's name's on title, but I'm not, or even before we got married, if let's say I've lived in the property for 3 or more years with him, I automatically have homestead rights. So that is something that you have to be very aware of.
Yeah.
So for example, when I have any client and they're buying a property solo, I always get to the homestead and you have to declare it. And so it states there, and I state, we ask them in our introductory emails or questions, preliminary, do you have a spouse or common law partner? If they've answered no, I do have that, do pause and I say, in the event you were to meet someone, you have a common law partner or spouse, and they move in with you, they acquire homestead rights after 3 years. The only way to prevent that is, unless you kick them out before then, or you make them sign something like a cohabitation agreement. Yeah, you're like, okay, happy anniversary.
Doesn't there have to be, if you kick them out as you use, isn't there a time frame still, even if you do kick them out the door?
Yes. So that's the other thing too, is sometimes I'll have clients come to me and they'll be like, oh, did you have a common law partner or spouse? And they're like, yeah, but they haven't lived with me for 5 years. Doesn't matter.
Whoa, really?
They still have homestead rights in the property. So unless they've already dispensed with that through other means, I've had people, have to face their ex from 10 years ago and come and sign documents at my office. So people don't realize how important homestead is, and it's quite scary too, because that person could come after or that sort of thing as well. So it's something that is not talked about enough. And the same way too, if let's say my name's only on the mortgage, let's say my husband's self-employed, didn't qualify, or that sort of thing. There's a variety of different circumstances, or he's a student is an example, and I am solely on the mortgage. I can't sign that mortgage solely at the meeting. Basically, my husband would still have to come in and would have to sign as a consenting spouse. So basically, he has to consent that he knows that I'm setting up for a mortgage because technically, because we're married, because we're common law, that sort of thing. So that also takes people for surprise as well. So it's not worth lying about. I know sometimes people think, hey, this is my property. My wife has nothing to do with it. That does not matter. And especially when it comes time to
that just created episode 3 for Sarah.
No,
there we go.
You don't see that stuff on Selling Sunset. Hey, everybody goes happy when you love it or list it. You don't have the lady for 5 years ago now saying, wait a minute, you.
Yeah, here we are.
I don't know with the attitude. So
I like it. I like that. I'm into that.
They cover the Homesteaders Act,
Yeah.
during our courses and stuff, and we're doing, but like not to this depth of whatever.
No,
Yeah.
no.
I just, holy
So
shit.
I think, we'll have to maybe expand that a
Did I
little.
just do the mic drop?
That just opened up everything there. You have a lot of people watching going, oh, geez, I got to think about this. Man, or I have to call him.
And of course, here's
I
the
don't
fine
know.
print is
Yeah.
every circumstance is different, right?
Yeah.
So I'm just
Yeah.
talking about generally,
Yes.
Call your local lawyer to find out if that's applicable, that sort of thing. But generally, it's something that people don't, just because somebody's moved out a year ago, but they lived with you for 8 years prior, that doesn't mean that all of a sudden they don't have to sign off on that homestead, right? So
Quick question on that, because we're gonna run out
we
of
got
your time here.
couple
But
minutes here.
quick question is, if they're paying rent, like, so if the other person is living you, but they're paying you rent, does it count as the same thing?
ugh, I know that's always
That's just something why we have to save it for another episode.
We'll do a whole new episode on this later.
yeah, I think we need to
We'll
do
pull a
that.
martini out and we'll have
Let's just bottle this up and we'll put this in the safe for
We're
later.
doing this
Bob.
one in your boardroom at your office.
I love it. I love it. Let's do it. That sounds great.
We got to let you go, Sarah. You're the busiest lawyer in Winnipeg, and that's why we love using you, because you are so fantastic to us and all of our clients. So, and you know what? We asked you back twice because you're so nice. For episode 3, we'll say please. So, no, thanks so much, Sarah, for so much information. You mic dropped us. We learned so much. Thank you so much.
I love it. I love it. Well, always a pleasure. Thank you again. I always appreciate spending time with you too. And thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Sarah.
Take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay. Well, they were just
drop on that last one. Holy.
Jeez.
Well, and see, that's just
good thing we bring lawyers on.
And that's why you should watch the whole episode of Real-tor Talk. You think just at the beginning, you're just going to hear a little, apples and oranges. Wait till that kumquat comes out. Hey, the kumquat. You know what I love about, one more last plug for Crave here. I didn't eat this the whole episode. You know what I was really excited about? I was thinking about the whole time. I was listening. Warmed up the bun. So now the bun is nice and soft. It's like an oven.
There you go. It's like 30 below in my basement, but hey, probably not like an oven anymore.
It's nice. No, so to wrap that up. That was so important.
That was, if you're going to watch one of our episodes, we're going to have to push this one a little bit different. But if you're going to watch one, this is the one to watch, because there's so much information in there. And it's relevant to every single person out there. Even if you don't own a home, you need a will, right?
We're all going to die.
So
newsflash. Sorry to break, sorry to ruin your day. Well, we
gotta be Debbie Downer.
We gotta lighten it up, right?
Whatever you do.
No, the reality is, it's going to happen. It's an unfortunate thing, but it's one of those things when it's like, or life insurance. Why am I paying for life insurance? Nothing's gonna happen to me.
You're protecting your family. You're protecting everything, right?
And the biggest, trust us. Yeah, we've seen it.
The biggest thing is protect your family.
Yeah.
Because if something happens, you want to make sure they are good. The last thing I'd want is something happen that my kids are all of a sudden on the street and they got nothing for them, right?
So my kids don't know. They're not getting anything of mine.
They do now.
Hurry, there's 4 of them. How much money do you think I'm? Oh man. Anyways, why do you think I'm going to Mexico next week? Just myself. No, I'm kidding. I'm taking them. All right. I think that's it.
I think Jesse's asking me to babysit in a nice way. Anyways, everyone. Thanks for watching. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Take care, and we'll talk soon.
Talk later.